This phone call question from Alan Steinberg in Louisville. How does each candidate feel about raising the minimum wage? Mayor Gray?
Well, I'm for it. In Lexington, we actually passed an increase in the minimum wage, and I think it represents the backbone of our economy in so many respects. It represents more than 80 years of history. And regrettably, the Congress, this is another example where the Congress, through gridlock and its dysfunction, has failed to act. And it meant then that a city like Lexington, a city like Louisville, had to act and had to do its job, had to do the job that the Congress should have been doing. Now, my understanding is Senator Paul is not only against an increase in the minimum wage, Senator Paul is against the minimum wage itself. I think that's wrong. I think it denies, and it is a denial of so much of the history of our country, a progressive movement of more than 100 years ago that recognized that a minimum wage was essential in a functioning capitalist environment and society.
Senator?
The Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, looks at these issues and tries to figure out what would be the consequences of things. If you raise the wage, a government set wage, above the market, or the market would set, what you get is unemployment. The greater the differential between the market wage and the government wage, the greater the unemployment. They predicted if the minimum wage were raised at $10 an hour, that 500,000 people would lose their job. There are probably 98 studies I saw about a year ago. I think that's how many we found. Every one of them showing that it leads to unemployment. It's particularly bad in the sense that it leads to unemployment among many of people with the least skills or the least chances, where there's so many obstacles. So actually, black teenagers have suffered more from raising the minimum wage above the market wage than almost any other category. What I would really like is to see wages way above the minimum wage. And I've traveled Kentucky. This is one of the things that really has impressed me. In the last 6 months, I've done about 130 town halls. I've been to industry after industry. And the main thing they're telling me, it isn't that they're paying $6 an hour, they're paying $12 an hour. I think I've been in 20 different industries paying $12 an hour. They said they're having trouble getting people to work for that. Their main problem, they say, are we need people with work ethic and people who are drug-free. So there are complicated problems that we have in our country, but if you raise the wage above the market wage, the people who are trying to get started in life, are hurt by this. I have 3 boys. They've all worked minimum wage. They've all learned what it's like to deliver pizzas and work as a host in a restaurant or in a call center. And frankly, that's how I grew up working.
Listen,
hard work with very small amounts, and I think it's good for the country to actually let people have access to work and learn the work ethic at a young age.
I got to respond to that. I'm a businessman, and I've worked through the minimum wage myself. Nobody in our company today makes a minimum wage, but I can tell you that a lot of people do make the minimum wage, and he's dead wrong on this. He's dead wrong on it. It's just like he's dead wrong on pay equity for women. Most of the people who earn minimum wage today are women. That's who's struggling, and that's who's suffering. And either he's missing it or he's denying it.
Senator, response?
Well, all of the economists disagree. They all say that raising the wage above the market wage leads to unemployment. Congressional Budget Office says 500,000 jobs will be lost. I mean, a good way to look at this is, let's say minimum wage is $7.25 and you make it $15. If you double it, if a McDonald's has 20 employees, what do you think happens? Do you think they hire more people at 15 or less? We already saw it with Obamacare. They loved Obamacare, and they said, oh, we're going to help poor people with Obamacare. The rates are going through the roof, but also what happened is they said if you work 30 hours, you have to get Obamacare, which was a cost of doing business. And so if you work 32 hours, guess what? A lot of people got moved back to 28 hours. Congressional Budget Office on this said Obamacare. Their big beauty. They love Obamacare. They want the government involved in everything. It said 2.2 million people lost jobs because of it.
So he's also going to take health care away from 20 million Americans and 400,000 Kentuckians.
Gentlemen, let's move on to another issue as we wrap up on our program tonight. According to the most recent Kids Count